Hey everybody, so I'm just going to quickly go through the directions for today's assignment. So yesterday we read Benjamin Franklin's speech at the convention, and now we're going to complete the close read, analyze the text, and analyze craft and structure. That's on the following page after the convention. His speech text. So the first thing you're going to do, and this is the exact same format as we did with the Declaration of Independence, so it should be pretty familiar, okay? So close read the text. This model from paragraph 1 of the speech shows 2 sample annotations, along with questions and conclusions. You're going to close read this passage, and you're going to find another detail to annotate, another question, and then draw a conclusion about your question. So here is the annotation. Well, let me just read the passage first, okay? So, I confess that I do not entirely approve of this Constitution at present. But, sir, I am not sure I shall never approve it, for having lived long, I have experienced many instances of being obliged by better information or fuller consideration to change my opinions. Okay, so this first line was annotated. It said, the words confess is a startling beginning to a speech, right? You're saying, look, I'm confessing. This is like a big deal, bros. Okay, and then you're going to ask a question. So here it says, why does Franklin say this? Why does he say he confesses? And then I'm going to conclude that by confessing to his own struggle, Franklin shows that compromise is not a sign of weakness. Okay, here's another one. So having lived long, Franklin reminds listeners of his old age. Okay, and why does he make this point? He is reminding them of his age and experience. He has authority that his listeners lack, right? Some of his listeners are these young 20-something-year-olds. Benjamin's like, I have lived a life. And so I know what has gone down in this world, and I have authority to tell you how it should be, right? That's going back to ethos, our ethos, pathos, logos, okay? So you're going to, something else that's not highlighted, you're going to make a note of, ask a question about it, and draw a conclusion about it, okay? Next, you're going to analyze the text. So respond to the following questions. For full credit, you need to restate the question and cite your evidence to support your answers, okay? You need to bring quotes from the speech to support what you're saying. It's only a page and a half. It shouldn't be that hard to find a quote. Ask me if you need help finding a quote. But for instance, number 1, Franklin addresses his remarks to Mr. President George Washington, who led the proceedings. How can you tell that his remarks do not concern Washington alone? And then your answer needs to restate the question. So I can tell that Franklin's remarks don't just address George Washington because give your answer and then find a quote that shows that you're right, that supports your answer from the text, okay? That's all you do right there. And then continue. So number 2, part A, early in the speech, what does Franklin admit that he sometimes doubts? Franklin admits that he sometimes doubts blah, and then in quotation marks, put where he said that, right? Write the line. B, how does this admission relate to his overall argument? This admission relates to the overall argument by blah, 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 right? So just make sure restating the question, citing evidence. I'm going to mark down a lot of points if you're not doing this. These are what I need you to do, okay? Number 3, an allusion is a passing or unexplained reference from history or culture. In paragraph 2, what is the purpose of Franklin's allusion to the builders of Babel? Okay, and so what you're going to do is Google the builders of Babel and figure out what that means and why you think that Franklin brought that in, right? That's taking us back to biblical times. It's alluding to something that happened then, Okay. And B, do you consider the illusion to be effective? So do you think that him talking about Babel, after you Googled what that actually means, do you think that he did a good job at using that or not? Okay, so that's B. In what way does Franklin, not Franlin, fear the delegates may undermine the Constitution even after they sign it? Okay, so explain in what ways he fears and then quote. And lastly, this is from you. What is the meaning of freedom? So back to our essential question. What have you learned about the nature of freedom by reading this speech? Okay, so you can restate the question. Freedom is blah. The nature of freedom, or I have learned blah, blah, blah about the nature of freedom by reading Ben Franklin's speech. Okay, you don't need to quote anything there because this is your own opinion. Please, please, please ask me if you have any questions about this. I know that this is a little bit more difficult, but I think you can do it. Okay? And then analyze craft and structure. This is just information on this slide. So, author's purpose. Remember last week we learned about rhetorical devices, ethos, pathos, and logos, right? Our ethics or credibility, our logic, our logos, and our pathos, our emotions, okay? So we're going to learn some more about rhetorical appeals or appeals that are trying to convince people to do something. So the Constitution was approved and sent to the states for ratification for a change. Franklin's text provides examples of several rhetorical devices or ways of using language for effect that appeal to an audience and produce a successful oratory. Basically, he uses these devices, he's trying to convince them to do what he wants, and it makes a nice speech, right? That's what an oratory is. So there are three things that you're going to be looking at today. The first one is a paradox. It is a statement or idea that seems contradictory but actually presents a truth. For example, in Hamlet, the statement, I must be cruel to be kind, right? Being cruel and kind are opposites, seems illogical. It doesn't make sense, right? But when you reflect on it, it demonstrates a deeper truth that sometimes one must face a painful reality in order to rise above and learn from it. Okay? So where is he using that? Maybe. Might be asked in the next page. Number 2, concession is the acknowledgement of the opponent's arguments. So I'm arguing with Ben Franklin, and I say, okay, I understand your arguments. I see. That's a concession. Or if you're saying, yeah, I agree with you. You're right. I'm conceding to him, right? I'm stepping down and saying, you won, basically, right? And then rhetorical question. Most of you probably know what that is. There are questions asked for effect, not needing an answer, right? So if I say, what's a good rhetorical question? Man, how good are these tacos? Sometimes don't tell me how good they are. I'm just saying, like, dang, these tacos are good, but I'm asking a question about it. I'm making a point, right? So while strictly not an example of a rhetorical device, a speaker's tone, I'm going to actually put this in a different color so have that highlighted, or attitude towards the subject or audience can also sway listeners. Phrasing and word choice combine to convey tone, right? You can have a sassy tone, you can have a sad tone, you can have a happy tone, right? Which may be ironic, serious, funny, however you want to convey what you're trying to say. Like, for example, if I'm super serious and I say, this is Benjamin Franklin's speech in the convention, I have a serious tone, right? But if I say, this is Benjamin Franklin's speech in the convention, that's a more fun tone, right? So think about that too. What kind of tone is he using? And your last assignment on the last slide number 5. So this is the craft and structure activity. And this is all in your book. Some people were a little bit confused. You do not need to write in your book. You can if you want. But all of your answers just need to be typed into this PowerPoint, okay? So you're going to use this chart to identify examples from Franklin's speech of each rhetorical device noted. So where did he use a paradox, right? And what does the paradox use to, or how does the how is the paradox used to strengthen what he's trying to say? How is the concession used to strengthen what he's trying to say? And how is the rhetorical question used? Okay. So once you've done that, that'll take a while. You got to go back through the text. Then you're going to highlight on here the set of adjectives that best describes the tone of the first paragraph of the speech. Do you think it's slyly humorous and self-deprecating, so he's making fun of himself and it's kind of funny? Is it deeply earnest, concerned, and frustrated, so he's, or is it serious, witty, and informal? Okay? And then explain why you chose that one. You can use specific words or phrases from the text to support your answer. Okay? Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see y'all later. Bye!